Welcome back, everybody. You're with us on the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffern, along with Coach Arnie Ball. And in our first segment, we want to go over the alumni match, which was played last weekend. And here we go with a little bit of the history involved with our program also. Coach, what did you think of the alumni match?
Well, Tim, it's always fun to have the alumni come back and play against our kids. We've used 3 or 4 different formats. Back when I was still coaching the women's team here, we used to bring the women alumni and the men's alumni back on the same weekend, and we'd have them all here on a Sunday, and we'd play all day and just have a great time and develop some real strong relationships between the gals and the guys over the years. As a matter of fact, I think that last time I counted, we had 5 pairs of marriages come out of men's and women's volleyball here at IPFW, so I don't know whether I should be proud of that or not proud of that, but anyhow, we've always had a lot of fun having the alumni back, and of course, since I don't coach the women anymore, we've kind of separated a little bit in that regard, and as you well know, you guys have your alumni back and play, but it's a great chance for our alumni to come back and have one more opportunity to play on center court. Those who were with me originally when we first started the program in 1979 get a chance to come back and never had the notoriety that the kids get today or our program has today, and of course we put them in in our blue and white uniforms instead of the old gold and red uniforms, and it's just always a lot of fun, and it's also an opportunity for us to open up the season at home, for me to get a chance to play a lot of our kids. As you know, when we played last Friday, we broke the alumni up in what we would call a little bit older group. I don't want to say old, like Paul Wiss and Colin Leiter, but just a little bit older, and in some cases just a little bit heavier, and in a lot of cases, in Jake Denia's case and maybe Mike Keyes, much less heads of hair than what they used to have, even though Jake was bald when he played here. And of course the more recent group, and we try and split our group up as well. So it's really a nice time for us to get a chance to see what our kids play like on the first time on center court here at home as well.
Yeah, I thought they played real well. Just looking at some of the stats that we keep with our new stats program that we have here at IPFW, I thought George came out and played real well for only being here a week, as well as Zub and a few of the other new people have some nice stats.
Well, real pleased with the progress George has made. George Ikovoy is who we're talking about, and you fans will hear that name a great deal in the next 4 years, the young man who came to us from Greece and has only been here since January, and the word has apparently gotten around very quickly. Tim, the assistant coach at Ball State, called me yesterday and asked about the new players we had already, and heard we had a kid from Greece, so the word on the street's already out. And the fact that George has only been here a week into the alumni match, and of course now another 4 or 5 days here with us, he's made really significant progress, and I think will do a really nice job as his career continues. Of course, Dave Zub, who is the young man that transferred from Ball State, I thought did a really good job too. But overall, I was real pleased with our team's performance. You know, you guys got us down in game 5 in particular, 7-1, and we came back and won. Even though there's much controversy with Coach Franke, who coached the alumni team, and thinking that I paid Dan Brandt and Bob Michael, the 2 referees, off, and of course your 2 gals who called line, and I did everything I could to get every break in the game, because there's no way I want to lose to Franke, because he'd never let me live it down. But it was a lot of fun, and certainly I'm pretty pleased with some of the things that we did.
Yeah. And the other person that I think is really starting to stand out and uplift his level of play over last year is Ricardo Soler. Ricky, as he's known to a lot of his fans, is really starting to take some of the reins of the team and starts to speak a little more. His first year, he's a pretty quiet person, and now he's starting to come out of his shell, so to speak, and start to take some of the leadership onto his back now.
Well, Ricky's a very talented young man, and as we talked about last week, he had a lot of success this past summer down in Puerto Rico with the junior national team, and so there's no reason to think that indeed he won't follow in the same footsteps as Norman, excuse me, as Norman did, and he reminds me a lot of Raul He has the same kind of abilities that Raul had, same kind of quickness, same kind of jump. As you know, this fall when Scott Lauer was hurt, Ricky was our setter this fall, and Raul was our setter his freshman year, the whole season. So they just have a lot of similarities, and I think Ricky has the potential to be as good, if not a better player than what Raul was, and that's saying a lot because Raul was just a tremendous player here for us.
Yeah, and as an alumni myself, I think it's also fun to come back and see what new players are coming up and taking some of those leadership roles, because we know when we were playing here who had leadership roles and that kind of thing. So it's just a whole lot of fun as a alumni myself, coming back and able to see how the program's progressing, and then, like you said, it starts to stir up the emotions in a person when they get out on center court again with the referee and the fans and things, and then all of a sudden they start to get some of the glory days come back. They think they're pretty good, but the alumni probably have lost a step or two by that time. But certainly is fun for the young kids as well to know they look across the net and have some respect for people who have been through the process, and know that there are roots and things they need to live up to as an alumni.
Well, Tim, that's a real important point. One of the things that we don't have here at IPFW, and this is true in not only athletics but the campus as a whole, is any significant tradition. And you develop those traditions through alumni. And because of the configuration of our campus with his affiliation with both IU and Purdue, it's very difficult for us to establish an alumni sensitivity to the continued growth of our campus. And that's another reason why it's real important for us to have the alumni come back. I know the basketball team just had like the 25th anniversary team back this past weekend, and we need to continue to do those kinds of things because it's real critical for the continued development of each of our programs, as well as the university as a whole, that the folks that have been here get a chance to share with those who are now here the importance of being part of the program was to them. And so we really need to work at that, and that's something we can talk about in a future date as well.
Great, yeah, personal investment, key ingredient to building tradition. And we'll be back on the show with the green coming up, part of our new offense here at IPFW. Stick around, we'll be back in a second.
Hello, I'm Arnie Ball.
And I'm Tim Heffron.
Watch us every Friday evening at 7 p.m. for IPFW Volleyball Highlights.
We'll also describe strategies and fundamentals for all you new volleyball fans.
We may even invite a Volleyball or two to join us on the show, so tune in to us every Friday night at 7 p.m. here on Channel 6.
Check it out! The campus has it all. Learn it, or work it, or play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. You're here with Coach Arnie Ball and your host Tim Heffron, and we're going to talk about the green, specifically relating to our offense here at IPFW. The green is a new set that we've acquired here over developing it over the past. And Coach, what exactly is the green?
Well, it's a little bit of a new offensive play for us, but certainly nothing that's unfamiliar to you, because I'm stealing it from you. And I think you probably have stolen it from some other programs, women's programs in particular. And it's a very basketball-related, or at least I think it is, a very basketball-related skill. It's a matter of being able to go behind the setter as a middle hitter, go behind the setter, with the deception and 1 foot takeoff, and allow yourself to slide past the setter, and then he sets, or he or she, the setter, setting the ball back towards the antenna, and you take off on 1 foot, and 9 times out of 10 hit the ball back, what we would say back across your body, back into zone 1, zone 1.5, and allow the blockers to float past it. And you know, I've watched the women do this for the last 3 or 4 years and kind of laughed at them because I really thought it was a feminine thing to do. And we got to experimenting with the thing and seeing some other men's teams do it, even though I haven't seen anybody do it internationally on the men's level, but I think we will. And we've become very successful at it. And so we've added it to our offense, in particular with Mike Tremolin, who's playing the middle and also the backup setter position. And George came in already having done it, I found out this week. And so he's adapted to it very quickly. And the purpose of it is that it seems to be an easier kind of thing to do off 1 foot, like you shoot a layup. And everybody's used to having played basketball and shooting a layup off your left leg, and that's the leg that you drive off of as a right-handed hitter. And it just seems to be, and it's not quite a critical timing kind of thing. It allows you a little more flexibility. Once again, as you know, with teaching the girls, Andy Reichardt's gotten really good at it, I think, on your team. And it just allows for a little more error, but it also allows the hitter to be more imaginative, or creative maybe is a better word, and being able to hit the ball away from them or back across their body because it's not such a quick move. So we've been working on it, and we call it green in our offense. I'm not even sure what you call it in your offense. Maybe you can tell us. As we all develop our own offensive schemes, we have different kinds of things that we use as far as key words and letters and numbers are concerned. But we call it a green, and so when someone sees our middle hitters making the attempt to shoot a layup, boy, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it's become a real effective weapon in our game as well as any game. I think the key ingredient, as I think about it, is to promote some speed as fast as you can get somewhere. And the fastest way to get somewhere, I think, is without a car or motorized vehicle, is to run. And that is basically the approach, is a flat-out run somewhere, which makes it extremely quick for somebody to get from one spot to another spot. And as you've mentioned, going against the grain, the human eye is trained to handle something in one direction, and you set something in motion one direction, all of a sudden you hit right back against that flow of that ball. It's being set out this way and the person running out this way, and all of a sudden the ball flies back the other way. It's extremely difficult to dig, I think, as a defender, and becomes hard to block as well. And the blocker almost has to guess, and when the blocker guesses, then your defender behind him has to guess, and then everybody's getting confused.
Yeah, I think the real offshoot of this whole thing is that once you establish this green set, and you can establish it fairly quickly in the offense, is that it really opens up the left side. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the reason I'm looking at it, more so than just it being an opportunity for our middles to be able to score more. I'm looking at it from the standpoint that right now we have Craig Collins and Ricky predominantly on our left side. And other than Pepa, those two are our strongest offensive players. So we need to figure out ways to isolate those guys one-on-one on the left side. Well, by running the middle player behind, as you talked about with directional flow and with speed, either the left side blocker of the opposing team has to block your middle one-on-one, or the middle blocker has to chase that middle behind. And if you don't chase him behind, then it becomes very difficult for the left side blocker to stop by themselves.
And as you mentioned, George already having known how to do it, he actually likes to run it faster than I think everybody else is accustomed to, and not ready for that speed. But I think once Scott Lauer gets used to it and starts making it faster and faster for George, the faster a middle hitter can get up in the offense. Doesn't necessarily have to hit the ball, but if they can be part of the offense in taking away a blocker, like you mentioned, it's going to open up everybody else. And so the faster you run that thing away from, say, Craig Collins and Ricky, the more one-on-ones you're going to end up with.
Well, I really, I mean, obviously, I don't know at this point what we're going to end up doing by the middle of the year. But as I look at it, I'm leaning very strongly to trying to develop this set, as well as what we call the spread set, which is the one in front of the setter, but the same kind of set a distance away, because I think it really gives you a chance to open up the antennas where the strength of our team is at. Traditionally, we run what we call a tight offense, or where the middle attacker comes real close to the setter and they kick it to the outside. But unless you're very good at that, it's real easy for a middle blocker to do what we call read block and still get to the outside where you may be setting the ball. When you run this middle behind, it's impossible. It's impossible to get there if you run it correctly to the left side. But if you run our spread offense, which is the one in front of the setter, and then set it behind, the same thing is true. Now it's impossible to get to the backside. So I think that we're going to really spend a lot of time on this green set and on our what we call the A set or the spread set, and see if we can't use our middles to get middle blockers moving in the wrong direction and set against the flow.
Great. Well, there you have it. The green set, an adaptation of our flash that we call it on the women's team, and I stole it from somebody else, and I think it gets around to everybody eventually. We're going to be back with the team status and upcoming matches, so stick with us as we come right back.
Pretty fancy ladies.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. In this segment, we're going to talk about our status of the team and the upcoming matches tonight and tomorrow with some really heavy competition right off the bat for us. How do we look now in practice, Coach?
Well, the most difficult thing, Tim, is that the saga of deteriorating bodies continues. As everybody's aware, we lost Brad and Wayne to the ACL injuries. And this week, PAPA, we have a stringent weightlifting program that we've had the kids on since right after Labor Day. And we've been very faithful to it. And I've been real pleased with it. I thought it's really made a big difference in our overall endurance and strength. And on Monday, we're going through our program, and we get ready to go to practice, and Papa's not there. And I went, "Where's Papa?" He hurt his back. And we were concerned for a while that he might have had a hairline fracture in his lower part of his back. But it just sounds like, at this time anyhow, that he's strained a muscle in his lower back, and so he hasn't practiced all week and may not get to play tonight or tomorrow night. But he's progressing along very well, so I'm pleased about that. But certainly it's a real disappointment if he doesn't get to play this weekend. And
some more fuel on the fire there.
Oh boy, I mean, I'm getting real good at taking care of Northeast Orthopedics over here. Then yesterday in practice, or before practice started, I walked into the training room just to visit with my team, because right now we have 6 players on scholarship that didn't practice yesterday, and I'm just going, to Dave Smidlen, my assistant coach. I'm going, you know, the team we have not at practice is pretty good. The one we have at practice is real young. So it should be a true experience this weekend for us. But anyhow, I walked into the training room yesterday, and or Wednesday, I guess it was, and there's Craig Collins sitting on the end of the training table, looking like he'd lost his last and most only friend he ever had. And we're getting ready to go to practice. And I said, Craig, what's the matter with you? I'm going to ready-mid. And I'm just going, what? He said, I'm going to ready-mid. What's the matter? I got food poisoning. Well, he ate some hamburger that he had in the refrigerator that had frostbite or something on it. He ended up with food poisoning, so he didn't practice yesterday or Thursday.
Oh.
So it's been a real experience, but I'm real pleased with Scott Lauer's progress. I think he's progressing very nicely. Certainly, as we alluded before, George is doing really a nice job in the middle. Right now, we've moved Mike Tremolin back into the middle just because of the Pepa being out. And the green set that we talked about, Mike's picked up on. Ricky's really holding his own. We expect Craig to be back by tonight. Forrest has not been practicing real well. I'm not sure why. He just hasn't quite recovered from vacation yet. But Justin Luna's playing real well. And real pleased with Justin in practice yesterday. Dave Zubb's still holding his own. A couple of new kids have got to step up a little bit. But our big problem is the fact that just our numbers are become depleted so much that it's real difficult to have a quality practice like we'd like to have.
Yeah, it becomes extremely difficult when you're trying to come up with a scrimmage and have 12 people out there. When you don't have that many, start throwing assistant coaches in there, and although we can be okay out there, it's still not the same, and it needs to be a team type of practice where the players are able to learn their positions that they're gonna work on, and I think one of the things I've noticed in practice is the progress of Justin Luna's confidence in handling being able to side out when his side of the court needs a side out. He's gotten the ball and he's done some nice things and been able to transfer that into the first squad when he's had an opportunity. So I think you're right. He's going to maybe able to plug some holes there if we need to in actual battles.
Well, I think that's a real good observation, Tim. And of course, you've been down there with us, but real pleased with Justin. I think he's going to be a really solid third passer for us on the team, and certainly that's real critical. As you know, the first contact is the most critical to establish your offense, and so the things that Justin has done, he's a really good defensive player as well, so I'm excited about his progress and really happy for him. He's a young man that was here last year, came to Fort Wayne, lived here last year, didn't go to school, but lived here to establish residency, and then started school this fall and has made a lot of sacrifices to be part of our program, and I think it will pay off for him.
That's excellent. Let's switch gears a little bit here and look at the upcoming tournament here tonight as we play. What's the obstacle? What's the first obstacle in tonight's match?
Well, I guess it's still survival. You know, it's the survival of our own team, and not knowing exactly how our team's going to react to playing at home the very first time in the season. We're going to play George Mason, and I know very little about George Mason. Ron Shake is the coach there, and he does an excellent job. We've had a real rivalry with them ever since we started this program. We've played them from the very beginning, and the rivalry still exists today. We know that they have a couple real fine middles that supposedly they've recruited, and that they will play very hard, and so our kids will have to be ready to compete at that level.
Thing I noticed about George Mason when I played against them, I remember, was that they could run the middle extremely fast. They were extremely quick in the middle. I'm not sure if they still do that, but that seemed to be their signature, is that they just would force middle and go with middle and do a little more middle.
Well, I think that's a real trait that Ron has put into that team, and as you said, they've even done that in the past. Ron was a former player there and an assistant coach, so you have a tendency to follow your mentor, I guess, his philosophy, and I think that's certainly true. They've always had athletic middles. Matter of fact, they just had a young man who just was released from the national team who was a middle. So obviously they've recruited quality people there, and it'll be a real good opening test for us on Friday. Well, this evening, I guess, when we play.
And then, of course, tomorrow we'll be playing Manitoba, #1 ranked in Canada. They're just loaded with athletes from what I remember from last year.
Well, they have probably the best setter maybe in, I don't want to say the northern continent, because we have a couple pretty good setters on our national team, but the setter they have on their team is off their national team. And he's very, very good. They're very powerful right now. They're 31-0 up there, ranked #1, and there's no reason to believe that they just won't be a really great team coming in here. And our kids will have to play at a very, very high level in order to be successful.
Well, let's hope they do. I think they're going to have their hands full, but if they can stick in there with their minds, they're certainly going to be able to compete with these folks.
All we ask is they play hard, and if they play hard, anything can happen.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. This has been the Arnie Ball Show. We will come to you next week at the same time in a few seconds. Hold on to your seats because you're going to have the first match of the year with George Mason. We'll see you later. For Arnie Ball, I'm Tim Heffron. Goodbye. Welcome, everybody. You're with us on the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffron, along with Coach Arnie Ball. And tonight on the show, we're going to have a recap of last week's events, two special guests on the show tonight, and an update on the team status, as well as a preview of upcoming matches. Stick around. We'll be right back after these messages.
The college basketball season is underway for 1994-95, and the Great Lakes Valley Conference has been rated by some as the toughest of the NCAA Division II conferences. Join Coach Andy Piazza and me, Matt DeLong, to get a closer look at the IPFW team and this year's competition.
Welcome back, everybody. You're with us on the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffron, and first of all, we're going to go over this past weekend's results. First, starting with George Mason, a loss there in 3, but a very close match, even though it was 3, Coach. What do you think happened in the match?
Well, Tim, before we get started in the discussion about the match, I have a question for you. I thought we agreed that this was to be dress-up day, and you're kind of dressed down compared to me, so next time, follow our discussion pattern so that indeed you look like me, instead of not looking like you look kind of scudsy there. I guess what we want to talk about, what would you ask me? Oh, George Mason. George Mason, that's right. Jason Stang, my nightmare. Jason Stang, who transferred from IPFW to George Mason and then ended up beating us last Friday evening in 3 games, as you alluded to. Last 2 games were 16-14, and we had opportunities to win both games and were able to put it away, I thought, once we got to 12 points. George Mason's a much improved team. The nice thing about George Mason for us is that I think they're going to be a measuring stick for us throughout the year. We're going to play them 4 times, which is about 4 times too many. But it'll also give us an opportunity, because we play them all the way along through the year. We play them up at Lewis in a couple of weeks. We play them over at Penn State in a few weeks after that. And then we play them down at Ball State in April. So I think they could be a good measuring stick for the progress of our team. I was disappointed, obviously, that we lost to them. I felt going in that we had an opportunity to defeat them, but didn't know much about them. As I said, they're much improved. They've got most of their kids back from last year, and we're still searching to try and find the right combinations for our team. I thought it was an exciting match from that standpoint. We really didn't play very well the first game. Early it was okay, and then we just didn't have much rhythm. We never got into a passing rhythm. We never got into an exciting out rhythm of any kind. Scott struggled, I thought, partly because our passing wasn't very good, and so it didn't allow him to do some things we wanted to do offensively. And as the match went along, we kind of settled in a little bit, but in games both 2 and 3, we had opportune times to score, and either didn't block the ball or didn't dig a ball in transition to the point where we could take a good swing, or we did take a good swing and hit the ball out of bounds, or I think Craig got blocked on the left side one-on-one one time, and you know, those kinds of things just can't happen. We had a missed timing play there in both games 2 and 3, and a lot of serving errors. Gee whiz, we had, I believe, stats show we had 19 serving errors, and George Mason had 5. And that discrepancy is much too large, and you can accept a little bit of that if indeed you're serving aggressively, but we didn't even serve aggressively, and so I'm pretty disappointed in that, and obviously that's something we have to take a look at.
Yeah, the error ratio, service ace to error ratio that you're looking for, I believe, is somewhere around 1 aces to 2 errors, I think.
That's correct. That's what we usually try and get.
And we had 5 aces and 19 errors, so you've got a 1 to 4 ratio, obviously too much.
Well, we keep a stat. Mark Franke on the bench keeps all of our serving statistics, and we want the players to reach a goal of 1.7. Now, what that means is that, you know, we keep track of the passing of the opponent's team and rank them from 3.0 to 0, and we need our servers to be at 1.7 or above. And what's pretty ironic about that is that when we do that, when we serve as a team at 1.70 or above, we've always won. And I believe against George Mason it was like a 1-3 or 1-4, and against Manitoba it even got worse. But that's a real interesting stat for us to keep, and one that's a real helps us in a measuring stick of success for us to be able to score points.
Yeah, if you have 19 errors and 19 aces, you're probably going to be above a 1.7, and so it's not necessarily bad to have a number of errors, as long as you're serving tough enough that you get the aces that should go along with those kinds of errors.
Well, it's absolutely correct, and you know, serving is so often looked upon as just being something to start to play by novice, even coaches and fans, and particular players. But serving is so critical to your ability to be able to score points. I was sitting at home last night watching the USA play the Netherlands in the World Championships. And you know, the U.S. had some real trouble serving the ball consistently in the court, and the Netherlands was back there jump serving the ball in the court consistently and putting an awful lot of pressure on our team to side out. Well, the same thing happened with us with George Mason. You know, every time we make what we thought was a really good play or transition play, we go back to serve and serve the ball in the net or out of bounds. Not only does it decrease your efficiency to score points, but emotionally and psychologically, it makes it very difficult for your team to stay up, because you work real hard to get the ball and you just kind of kick it like a field goal and it goes wide, and everybody goes, oh boy.
Yeah, I have an interesting story I heard from Mike Hebert, coach at Illinois. His first international competition was against the Cubans. And everybody knows the Cubans are a great side-out team, and they don't care if they make serving errors. They serve tough. The first game, I think, he said the Cubans had 25 service errors, and the Cubans won the game 15-2. You know, so that tells you how well they side out when something like that happens. So again, it all fits into your team flow and what you can do with other parts of the games, how tough you're able to serve and those kinds of things. You got to evaluate those kinds of things. Let's move on with Manitoba now. Tough group of people there coming down from the north.
Well, Manitoba is probably as good a team as we've played in the history of our program, and that would even include UCLA, you know, here last year. Manitoba has 3 players off of the Canadian national team, and then on Friday night they played Ohio State, and Ohio State played them a very good match and went 4 games, as a matter of fact. And I talked to Garth Pitschke, the coach from Manitoba, after our match on Saturday, and he said, well, our boys, as they talk in Canada, our boys were a little upset about the way they played against Ohio State. And so we thought we'd step it up a little bit on Saturday night. And I said, well, thanks, Coach. I really appreciate that, as they beat the tar out of us. We did not play well. I think we played well the first 3 points of the first game. As a matter of fact, I think we went ahead 3-2. And after that, we created absolutely no pressure on them, and they were able to not only run their offense, but to dig balls. I think the 3rd or 4th play of the game, we set a blue to Craig, and he just really snapped it off, and they're right back. Their setter went back and dug the ball, and they transitioned and scored, and our guys looked at one another like, whoa, what happened here? They're just really a good team, and of course it was a pleasure for us to have them down here. They're a real quality group of individuals, and Garth was just a wonderful person and obviously a great coach. But they're #1 team in Canada. They're 33-0, and they were just a great team for us to play.
Well, great. It certainly is nice to measure yourself against the best teams early in the season as well as midpoint and end of the season. So we've had that kind of measurement here this past week and know what we need to work on. When we come back, we're going to have 2 special guests on the show. We're going to talk about the ACL injuries to Brad Perditis and Wayne Williams, so stick around.
Everything was great right up until about 40.
First-year IPFW women's basketball coach Pam Bowden is enjoying a fine preseason after coming to IPFW from the University of Alaska Anchorage. She has inherited a club which returns no seniors but still enjoys one of the top ratings in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. We want you to tune in every Wednesday at 7:30 to find out more information about the IPFW women's basketball team all season long.
In our ever-expanding world, we need a reliable source, one that addresses important aspects of our daily lives and provides us with useful information. Health and Home Report is that source, with stories on how to get the most for your money, where to go for a great vacation, hot fashion tips, what's happening in the world of arts and entertainment, and the latest medical breakthroughs. Health and Home Report provides a world of information.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffern, and we have a couple special guests here with us today. We have Brad Perditis from Minnesota, red-shirted swing hitter, and Wayne Williams from Jamaica, a red-shirted middle hitter, with us here today on the show. And we'd like to go over with you guys a couple, you know, what your situation is and how it's shaping up for you. Let's start with Brad here first. Brad, where are you from again now, specifically in Minnesota?
I grew up in Chanhassen, Minnesota. It's a suburb of Minneapolis.
And how did you come here? Happen to pick IPFW?
Well, I did some searching and found volleyball to be fun late in high school. And I played a year of club volleyball at the University of Minnesota. And I wanted to see if I could play at the next level, and contacted Arnie Ball and came out to Fort Wayne.
And Wayne, what part of Jamaica are you from there?
I'm from the southwestern part, Black River to be exact.
And how did you hear about IPFW from Jamaica?
Well, an old boy from my high school, he had links with Arnie Ball, and so he heard how well I was playing in high school. And he spoke to me, and I contacted Arnie Ball, and I came here.
Rest is history, huh?
Yeah.
And what are you both studying right now, Brad?
I'm a business management and marketing major a double major right now.
And Wayne?
And I'm doing the same thing.
Okay. So you guys have a lot of the same classes then, or?
Yeah, correct.
All right. And Brad, you're a junior, is that correct?
I'm a junior this year, yes.
And Wayne,
Sophomore.
Okay. And now let's head into the injuries a little bit. You both have the same injury we might want to mention here for the folks at home. Brad, yours happened in Canada, I believe, over Thanksgiving.
Yes, I was we were on the Thanksgiving trip to Guelph, Canada, and playing in the second match there. Right at the start of the game, I went up for an attack, a spike, and I came down near the center line, and the blocker from the other team landed on my foot and immobilized my leg, and I couldn't move, and something had to give, and it was my ligament that gave. So
I think sometimes I have a suspicion that they're making shoes so good now that you don't, and plus you have the active ankle, that there's not as much give in the ankles anymore, and so it has to be transferred somewhere else, and it's starting to get transferred to the knee, I think. And that's why I think we're starting to see a lot more of these injuries than we saw in the past. Never heard of this kind of injury when I played here.
yeah, I believe the coach hasn't had an injury like this in all the years he's coaching, and now this year he's had two in within a month or so.
And Wayne, how did yours happen, and where did it happen?
Well, it was the second day of practice. I mean, I was real hyped up about practicing, and it was about 3 plays into practice. I went to attack a red ball from the backcourt, and when I landed, I heard a pop, and I knew something was wrong because I've never felt any pop like that before. And so I rolled off the court and was later told that I had a ligament tear.
Okay, so you both have an anterior cruciate ligament tear. Is it complete tears for both of you? Is that right?
I had a complete tear. The MRI showed that there were just 2 stubs on the end that you could see where the ligament used to be, and it was blown to bits in the knee. So
Wayne, did you have a similar?
Yes.
It's both
complete tear.
Okay, so to fix such a thing, did you both have the same doctor then?
We were scheduled to have the same doctor, but because I ended up going home for Christmas back to Minnesota, Dr. Michael Lee recommended that I see a doctor in Minnesota. I believe, Wayne, you saw with Dr.
I saw
Pritchard?
Dr. Pritchard.
Okay.
But
and
originally,
how did the surgery go for both of you? Wayne, why don't you take it?
Well, I was awake during all this, but of course I had a spinal block, so I couldn't feel anything. And a graft was taken from the same place that they made the incision, and so that graft was used to fix the ligament. And I also had like a divot in one of my tendons, so that was fixed too.
Oh, you got a double repair job going there. Okay.
Yes, I guess Coach became a doctor that day because he was he was there. He saw everything, so I guess he'd be able to tell you everything that happened.
And he didn't faint.
And he didn't faint.
Well, hats off to him. Brad, how did your surgery go?
my surgery went well. They grafted also the patellar tendon off the knee and used that as the new ACL. Basically, there were no complications afterwards. It was about a 2-hour surgery.
Okay. Were you awake too through the whole?
I chose not to take the spinal block. I
didn't want to know.
I didn't want to see the surgery, so I told him to put me completely under.
All right, all right. So obviously after you have an injury and then you have the surgery, the next step is you have to have rehab, and that's where physical therapy comes into the play. And explain what kind of program you've been on and how it started and where it's going. Brad, why don't you start?
Yeah, the first few weeks of the rehab, they want you to get your mobility back, your flexibility, so you can straighten your leg and flex it all the way back. And eventually we'll get into a running program 6 to 8 weeks down the line. I know I'm in my 4th week right after the surgery. I'm not sure where Wayne is at. He's real close to where I am. Our injuries were real close to each other, but yeah, the rehab is tough. It tests our patience.
When are you expected to make a full recovery, or are you?
The doctors say athletes come back full recovery. It takes 5 to 8 months, 5 to 9 months anywhere,
So it's a
depending on how the
healthy
rehab
time.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Wayne, you have the same rehab program. Do you guys do it together?
Yes, we do it together.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's real hard at times.
Painful?
Yes, especially when you get it pushed on.
Mm-hmm.
But
Trying to increase flexibility and that kind of thing, I imagine, causes a lot of pain. I've seen a few ACLs rehabbed over the years here since I've been coaching, and it's not fun, but one thing I think that athletes do have is they want to get back and play, and so they're willing to go through whatever they need to do to be able to play. So I know motivated athletes are, you know, it's easy to be motivated as an athlete, really.
Yeah, definitely. When you get hurt and you realize, it took me a while to realize that I wasn't going to play this whole year.
Yeah.
Probably after the surgery, I'm sitting there on the couch at home, and you really get motivated to want to get better and back on the court.
Well, we certainly want them both back out there on the court because we notice their absence on the court. And best of luck to both of you on your recoveries here.
Thanks.
oh, thanks.
Coming up, we're going to have update of the team status as well as the match tonight and maybe a preview of tomorrow's match with Thomas Moore. And we'll be back after these messages. Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffern, along with Coach Ball, and we're going to go through an update of the status of the team right now, as well as a preview of tonight's match. Coach, how does the team look at this point?
Tim, before we get to that, we have to make a clarification, if it's all right with you. May I make a
Fine.
clarification? In the last segment of our show, we were talking to Wayne and Brad in regards to their ACL injuries, and you made the comment that because of the new shoes and the active ankles and those kind of things, that you thought that we were getting more injuries into the knee area as compared to when you played. As I sat and contemplated that particular part of the show and was thinking about what you said, I only could recall the fact that your vertical leap wasn't high enough to create any knee injury of any kind. And so I don't think it had a damn thing to do with the shoes or anything else in your case. I think it was just a lack of vertical leap on your part.
That
For
could
whatever
be.
that means, you know.
That could be.
I mean, I had to pass that along because I don't think I agree with your analogy there. Anyhow, what were we talking about?
Status of the team.
Oh, status of the team, status of the team. You talking about our team or the alumni team or which team?
Your team. Your team in
Our
practice.
team. Our team,
Our
not
team.
my team at this point. You know, last year it was my team, the year before it was my team, the year before that it was my team,
Now,
and the year before that it was my team, but this year it's our team. Our team is struggling, obviously, from the way we played last weekend. And we've got a little bit of the flu going through us now. You know, not only do we have all that stuff with Pepa and his back and the two guys we just talked to, but we now have a little bit of the flu, and I think that flu is everywhere. I know it's been in the women's basketball team as well. I think the men have had some of it, and now we've got it. George has been real sick the last couple of days. But as far as the status of the team is concerned, we've really this week put some people in different places just to take a look at some personnel and what the possibility is of making some changes. Obviously, we weren't pleased with last weekend. Other than George's sickness, physically we're healthy. Mentally, we're still not very strong just because we're searching for places. We've got to find out if Scott is going to be able to reverse his play from last weekend. I don't think he played well, and he knows he didn't play well, so we've got to find whether that's going to be reversed, and if it doesn't get reversed, we're probably going to move Ricky Soler into the setter's position. We really don't want to do that because Ricky's such a strong passer outside hitter for us, but the key position on any team is a setter position, the quarterback. And if Scott doesn't raise his level of play, then we got to find somebody who's going to. So that's created a little bit of disarray in practice this week, but yet it's created a real competition amongst positions. And what we've tried to reevaluate, as you know, if you sat in our coaches' meetings, is to look at where people fit the best and develop some competition for time to play. In the past, it's always been pretty obvious that we've had the majority of positions filled with high caliber players, and because of the inconsistency we've seen in this group right now, I think Pepa is pretty secure in what he's doing, and Ricky would be if we keep him to the outside. But after that, I mean, if Craig doesn't pick up his performance level, efficiency level in particular, not his intensity level, his efficiency level, well, we have to look at someone playing in his spot, and we just have to look at all of our positions and see who can play efficiently so that we can have some success.
Well, we might have an opportunity this weekend, I think, to gain some success and some footholds, some chances here tonight against Wisconsin-Milwaukee. What does Milwaukee bring to the IPFW Mastodons?
Well, in the past, Milwaukee's been a team that we've handled fairly easily. They have all their players are from Wisconsin, and of course Wisconsin has high school boys volleyball. And so I think that program is going to continue to get better, and I understand, we've not seen them, we have a scouting report on them when they played Ohio State, and we understand that they're much improved. We know they have a new middle, 6'5" kid that's a freshman kid that wanted to come here, and we told him that he'd need to walk on, but he's went up there and apparently gotten pretty good. They have a big kid opposite their setter who's left-handed, who will remind us a lot of the young man from Manitoba. I don't think he's as good as the player from Manitoba, obviously, but he's physically very similar, and he's left-handed. I understand he's got a jump serve. So I think they're going to be a much improved team, and I know the scores against Ohio State won, but it's pretty indicative of the fact that they're much improved because the scores were pretty close. So it's certainly a match that we need not take lightly, and especially with the status of our team right now, we've got to really be able to come out and focus Friday night and make sure that when we get to 12, that then we can finish the game off, which was the problem we had against George Mason last Friday.
Yeah, and then the Dons have a tough road of it because you have to get up immediately tomorrow morning and head out on the road for Cincinnati right away.
Yeah, we're going to go down and play Thomas More, which is just to the south of Cincinnati, and they're a new team in our conference, coached by Ray Gooden, who used to play at Ohio State. And obviously we're pleased to have a new program in the conference because we want our conference to continue to grow, and Loyola Chicago is going to join us next year, jump us up to 8 teams. But they're really young, and we played them in preseason, and they're not a very good team, but they play real hard, and they're trying. Just obviously when you just get started. So we're going down and play them 2 matches on Saturday, one at 10:30 in the morning, and other one I think is like at 4:30. And we're doing that because it allows us to save one of the dates for our schedule. We're only allowed 28 dates during the season, so by playing them twice in the same day, it saves us a date, and it gives us another chance to play some other competition.
And with a new team like that, you can afford to have 2 matches. Not anticipated to be an extremely difficult contest for you. So you probably get 6 games in, which is maybe equal to a tough 5-gamer.
Well, it's another opportunity for them. We agreed to do it down there if they would play 2 games like that. So once again, we can save the date. But it gives them a chance to have our program with the reputation that it has down on their campus, which helps them develop their program and the need to have their program and a little bit of following, that kind of thing. Otherwise, it ends up being a home-and-home kind of thing, and we end up losing a date, and the matches are not very good, and it doesn't do much for them or for us, either one.
Right. Well, that'll about do it here, I guess, for the Arnie Ball Show, as time flies when you're having fun. Next week on the show, we're going to bring Matt DeLong on, and he's going to tell us about the new computerized stats program we have here at IPFW for volleyball. Coach Ball has already seen some of the benefits of that as having stats during the match, and I'll see that next fall. We're going to talk a little more in depth about that next week. For now, I'm Tim Heffron for Arnie Ball saying goodbye. Good evening, everybody. I'm your host, Tim Heffron, along with Coach Arnie Ball on the Arnie Ball Show. This week, we're going to go over last weekend's results, a special guest, and the upcoming events. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
First-year IPFW women's basketball coach Pam Bowden is enjoying a fine preseason after coming to IPFW from the University of Alaska Anchorage. She has inherited a club which returns no seniors but still enjoys one of the top ratings in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. We want you to tune in every Wednesday at 7:30 to find out more information about the IPFW women's basketball team all season long.
Check it out! The campus has it all. Learn it, or work it, or play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Tim Heffron, along with Coach Arnie Ball here on the Arnie Ball Show. We'll first review this past weekend. First match was Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and quick, not so quick, but 3 games, Coach. The big story, I think, there was John Huffman.
Well, that's certainly true, Tim, and we need to talk about John Huffman in a second here, and we certainly don't need to talk about Wisconsin Parkside. That's a school that's joined the GLVC that you're going to get to play next year probably. But what we do need to briefly mention to all of our fans is we would like for everyone, when they have the opportunity, to wish you and Jean congratulations on your recent marriage in January. And the reason I bring that up is that the highlight of my week was the Super Bowl party we had at your house and the little reception that we had for you and Jean. So my wife and I enjoyed it very much, and it was a lot of fun, and thank you for having us over. And fans, if you get a chance to see Tim and Jean at the games, make sure you congratulate them on their recent marriage. They just got married here in January.
Thank you very
so
much.
Congratulations, Coach. That's great. Jean's a little shaky, but other than that, you know, it's okay. I hope she's watching the show tonight. John Huffman. John is a freshman, a young man that I had put on academic suspension because of some problems he had first semester, but he has shown some real good progress, and so we brought him off of that suspension for the Milwaukee match. It was good timing, I thought, by us. For no other reason than the fact that he's from Wisconsin, and most of the kids up there are from Wisconsin. And he's a player that has a great deal of athletic ability. The problem is he's a freshman. But I thought he did a really good job Friday night against Milwaukee, handling serve reception. Wasn't a stellar performance, but it wasn't awful. And offensively on the left side, he's pretty good. And so he did some nice things there for us. He has a lot to learn, but he's one of those kind of kids like Forrest and Justin and George. I mean, just all those young kids who have to play in order to get better. And this was a great opportunity for us to do that, and so I'm real happy for John. Hopefully a little bit of playing time will continue to give him some incentive in the classroom so he continues to do as well as he's doing right now, and will continue to be able to play for us the rest of the year.
And the 3 games were pretty quick, I thought. Actually, we anticipated a bit more offense, I think, out of Parkside with the addition of the freshman they had on the other side of the court. They're in the opposite position. He hit, I believe, somewhere around 500 for the match. But the rest of the team, Momcilovic and those folks, they didn't play as well as they did last year.
Well, the Wisconsin group has gotten much better. Glenn has done a really good job with that program up there, and they're going to get better and better because they have really quality players up there. As we know, Ball State has all 3 Ball State seniors are from there, and of course we just mentioned John Huffman, who's from up there, who's on our program. And so there's some really good kids playing volleyball up there, and I think Glenn will make the program continue to grow and get better. And I think they were, what, 3-1 or 4-1 coming in here. And I think they thought that they were going to come in here and kind of bowl us over because they knew of our injuries and the fact that we lost a couple of key players. And they were real high emotionally in the beginning, but it didn't take long for us to take that out of them. And then I think they kind of got in that mode of, oh, this is IPFW, and we've never beaten IPFW, and they still haven't beaten IPFW. And we served a lot better on Friday night than we did the previous weekend, and put a lot of pressure on them. And really, the only kid that really hurt us was the number 6, and I don't remember his name, but the kid at the opposite. But they had a lot of trouble passing, and when they did, then we blocked some balls. And as I said, I thought John passed the ball pretty well. John and Ricky passed the ball pretty well to allow Scott to run our offense, and we were able to pretty much offensively do whatever we wanted.
Okay, so after the Friday night match, the Mastodons had to wake up quite early in the morning Saturday to play 2 matches at Thomas More in Cincinnati, and that allowed for quite a few lineups, I bet.
Well, it made for a very interesting and long day. We left at, if I remember correctly, we left at 5 o'clock on Saturday morning after playing Friday night because we played at 10:30. And then we played again at 4:30, and we did that because Thomas More is a new school in our conference, and the NCAA limits us on the number of dates that we can play. I believe it's 28. And because Thomas More is new in the conference and they're not a real strong program, I talked to Ray, the coach down there, who's a former player at Ohio State, and asked him if we could come and play 2 matches on the same day so we wouldn't lose a date. But in the same token, we would come to his place and try and give his program some incentive of having a program like ours on his campus. So we left at 5 o'clock in the morning and got to just a little bit north of Cincinnati and ran into an ice storm. There were 15, 20 cars in the ditch. They were all over the place, and so that was kind of an exciting little trip for us. And we got down there and was able to play the first match at 10:30. And I played the first 2 games. I played the same group that we played here against Milwaukee. Huffman and Ricky passing, Scott setting, and then we left George and Pape in the middle with Forrest or Craig at the opposite. Game 3 then, I let Ricky set, and we had Zub and Justin passing, and left George in the middle along with Mike, and put Forrest at the opposite, and they played very well. Forrest, I believe, hit almost 60% for the weekend. and a lot of blue balls, and the balls out of the back row on the right side, and played very well. And so we played that match, and then went to get a bite to eat, and came out of got to the restaurant. It was just snowing like crazy. They ended up with 6 or 7 inches of snow down there, and I panicked a little bit, and Coach Franke, he kept a cool head and said, just don't panic, it'll blow over, it'll subside here before we get ready to go home. And so we went back to the gym, and we played the second match, and I did the very same thing. I played the very same lineup just like we did before, and once again Forrest played very well. I thought Dave Zub played very well with that second unit, and it's real nice to have an opportunity to get, those kids a chance to play. Also, Mike Tremolin played real well, and I'm real pleased with that, as we're going to talk about later on in the show, and some things that are going to happen in regards to Mike and Mike's play. What happened was it gave us a chance to play a lot of kids. It also gave us a chance to let Ricky set and run some offense, because right now he's our backup setter, or possibly pushing Scott for the starting position at that point. And it gave us a chance to play and have some evaluation of him, as well as the rest of the young kids. So it was a nice opportunity for us. The weather didn't get any better, but we finally made it back home in the snowstorm, and we're looking forward to going to Penn State this weekend.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to have Felipe Relat, known as Pepa, our special guest on the Arnie Ball Show. So stay with us.
The college basketball season is underway for 1994-95, and the Great Lakes Valley Conference has been rated by some as the toughest of the NCAA Division II conferences. Join Coach Andy Piazza and me, Matt DeLong, to get a closer look at the IPFW team and this year's competition.
The 101 Dalmatians is one of the most beloved children's stories of all time, and now is coming live to the stage.
101 Dalmatians sings a lot of fun.
Pongo, Cruella de Vil, they're all brought to life in this new musical stage version, and the audience becomes the 99 Dog-Nap puppies as they bark and join in the fun of the 101 Dalmatians.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffron. In this segment, we have our guest, our special guest, Felipe Relat, also known as Pepa. He's from Puerto Rico. And Pepa, tell us how you came from such a warm place to such a cold place.
Actually, I'm still thinking how. I don't know.
Not sure how it happened.
I know it all started with one Puerto Rican, then it kept going from Juan, then Raul, then Norman, and then after that, just me and now Ricky. And probably next year, there's going to be more.
There are going to be more. Is your brother involved in that?
Yep. I talked with him this last break, and I told him to, try. He's going to come as a walk-on. I know he can make the team.
And he's a setter, right?
Yeah, he's a setter, and opposite, he plays everything but in the middle.
Uh-huh. Well, excellent. That's a great connection that IPFW has developed here, as I'm part of the Minnesota connection. I know what you're talking about there and how that works. That's excellent. What do you study here at IPFW?
Right now I'm in my 4th year of business. That's towards business management and marketing, hopefully.
Uh-huh.
And that's it.
And what do you look to do with that kind of degree?
Hopefully I go back home. I want to work for a hotel in the future after volleyball, because after this year, this is my last year here playing volleyball at IPFW, and hopefully have a few options, or go back to Puerto Rico playing the club teams over there in Pro League, or go to Spain, Europe, and play volleyball there. If not that, play for the national team or AVP, I don't know. There are a few options that I could probably take advantage of. And if not, I just take advantage of my degree.
Certainly quite a few options out there now for volleyball players coming out of college, and certainly it's easier to play right after college than it is in 20 years. It's probably easier to get into the hotel management in 10 years after you've done that and made a name for yourself. Well, what do you do right now on the team as far as position and leadership and that kind of thing? What are your responsibilities?
Now, this year I have a completely different role than last year. Last year I was following Lloyd and Norman, but I was also a leader because, I mean, they were looking forward to me to perform. And this year I have to perform, also be a leader and carry the entire team. I mean, just have to be an example in practice and the games, and just show this, be assertive, listen to every player, have a good communication. I mean, a bunch of things that I probably have worked, but I haven't used them 100% with the entire team. I probably did it with Norman just once in a while and with Lloyd and all that, but this year has to be everybody. I have to carry that and show that to every player, be an example and all that.
So it's a little easier if you just have to worry about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And now you not only have to worry about your position, but you have to watch everybody else.
Like, there are a lot of new guys, like Forrest and George, who is from Greece, and he's still trying to adjust, and it's just a lot different how I used to follow, and now I have to be a leader so they can follow me, and I want to take them on the right track. I know it's going to take time, but I mean, I'm working on it.
Yeah, and not only on the court, but I imagine they're going to, listen to you off the court, traveling or anything like that. So, well, great. So far in your 3 years here, do you have any good stories or recollections of any events in your career here as an IPFW volleyball player?
Lots of good stories. I mean, freshman year I got to a Final Four. That was the first one, and then after that, I mean, every year, every spring break we go to California. Things happen, and team things, and last year shaving our heads. That was, awesome. Last year I got to be an All-American, and that was an excitement. I mean, I'm looking forward to be another one this year. I'm working hard on it. And the good things and bad things, I mean, upsets, like my sophomore year, we got upset by Ohio State, and that team was supposed to be the best team has ever gone through IPFW, and we lost to Ohio State in 5 games. But it has been 4 years that definitely the best 4 years of my life that I have had.
Well, excellent. Your goals for this year, you've already mentioned trying to become an All-American again. What are the other goals as far as you personally and the team?
Personally, like I said, the All-American, and I want to become a better player in aspects of the game, like defense and blocking, and I just want to be more consistent. That's what I'm looking forward to. As a team, I want to show more. I know that sometimes I'm very cocky and I demand a lot, because the years before, that's what they expected from me. Lloyd and Norman and Junkie and Raul and Quentin, they all asked for more from a new guy. Well, I'm trying to ask the same, but ask in a way that they can understand and they take it easy, and I don't get too rough on them and all that. I want to work on that aspect as team-wise. And the goal I want to accomplish is just go again to the Final Four. That's another goal. As a matter of fact, win the national championship, but we have to take it step at a time.
Right.
So, I mean, right now it's just upsetting the MIVA since no one expects anything from us.
So winning the MIVAs would be a big feather this year, I think.
Definitely, since no one expects for it.
Right, right. I forgot what I was going to... Oh, we're going to break. I want to kind of jump ahead here. We're going to talk about this in the next segment with Coach Ball, but I want to get your thoughts also on the upcoming matches this weekend with, say, George Mason, who you've already seen, and some folks on the Penn State club because they're from Puerto Rico as well. What do you see? Any revenge motive there, or...?
Definitely revenge against George Mason. I mean, last time they were here and they beat us here. I didn't like that at all. I mean, I didn't practice that entire week before playing, I know, but this time won't be any excuse. I mean, we just have to play. We had the match and we lost it. Penn State's just a match is going to be revenge for them because we beat them last time. Then when they play UCLA and they won the national championship, but before that we beat them first. So they are looking forward to play us and all that. And the other team is Juniata, which I have no clue.
You've not played them.
I'm not worried about them at all. But the matches of Saturday, George Mason first one, I guess, and last one Penn State. And Penn State is going to be a good one. I mean, there are a lot of Puerto Ricans, so it's going to be pretty good.
All right, well, great. Thank you very much, Pepa, for stopping by on the show. And when we come back, we're going to be back with Arnie Ball and get his thoughts on the update of the schedule here, the players, how they're coming around, and positions and status. So stick around as we'll be back in a few moments. Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. In this segment, we'll be going over the status of the team and some changes possibly, as well as the upcoming tournament at Penn State. First off, as the season progresses here, you start to get a feel, I think, of your players and what they can do, what they can give you for the year, and start to put them into positions. And how is that all shaking out now?
Well, Tim, I'm going to digress just for a second. You know, it seems like I always digress and don't give you a chance to. I guess I should apologize for that, but I think that people need to understand the continuing saga of our team. Craig Collins had the flu this week, and Pepa had the flu this week. But probably the most significant piece of information coming out of our team is Jeremy Watford, who is a walk-on from Elkhart, Indiana, has the chicken pox. And he called me on Monday and said, "Coach, I have the chicken pox." And I said, "What? Nobody gets the chicken pox anymore, not at this age." He said, "I have the chicken pox." I said, where in the world could you possibly have gotten them? Oh, he said, John Huffman had them over the holiday break. And of course, Jeremy moved in with John. And I'm going, holy lick. And John Huffman didn't bother to tell us that he had the chicken pox over the break.
Oh, boy.
And so panic has kind of gone through our team because Forrest has never had the chicken pox. Pepa's developing bumps all over his place all week because he's never had the chicken pox. Now, he doesn't have them, but he's paranoid. I mean, we got to write a book after the end of the year, or at least a chapter of the book. It's just been crazy. So we have 3 kids that have never had the chicken pox, and Jeremy's got them. So we may get at Penn State and end up with chicken pox people. I don't know. Anyhow, that's kind of the health status of our group. But I am looking at still some potential changes. You know, we talked about trying to find places for people to settle in, and you know, Pepa's a pretty good passer, and we worked this week on possibly putting him on the outside. We're still experimenting with Craig on the outside. I just talked earlier in the show about Ricky possibly moving into setter. But what it looks like right now with our team, that we will try and probably start with on Friday when we play Penn State over at Penn State, is Scott setting, Craig at the outside next to Scott, John or Justin at the other outside position. Justin's been playing real well in practice, as you well know. keep Pepa in the middle along with Mike at the second middle position, and then I'm going to put Ricky at the opposite. It doesn't necessarily mean that Ricky becomes our prominent back row attacker, because I still have Ricky, or I still have Craig and Pepa in a position where they can do that. But it does allow us some flexibility in the fact that if Scott's not playing well, I have Forrest or Dave Zub who can go in and play in Scott's position, and Ricky can set, and we don't have to make any adjustments in our lineup. The opposite is a natural position for Ricky. That's where he's always played. Also gets him a chance to block our right side and set in transition, which means we can run our middle. It also gives us a chance to use him as a passer, because we can use now Pepa, Craig, John or Justin, and Ricky as a passer. And if Ricky's setting, then we still have Pepa, Craig, and John or Justin, depending who's playing there, and Forrest, because Forrest can pass. So now the name I left out was George. George has started and played for us all the way along here, and he's still struggling a little bit with recognition of defenses, and he's still used to just jumping in the middle and leaving our outside exposed, and we just haven't been able to get in a timing flow with him offensively. Contrary to that, Mike's been, this last weekend, played very well. He's still offensively not as strong as I would like, but because he's had some time on the pine, he's come out with a lot more aggressive in practice and showed some things that I think are pretty positive. So I'm going to give him a chance to play some this weekend at that number 2 middle spot and just see how he responds. And we'll give George a little time to think about what he needs to do to adjust to our style of play compared to what he's used to back home. So those are some lineup changes that we're looking at. I think they're all positive. Practice has been very upbeat, and it gives everybody a chance to show their wares.
Well, let's move on then to this coming weekend. We've got the Penn State trip, and we've got Juniata out of Pennsylvania, well-known D3 women's powerhouse. They've moved into the men's league as well now, and what do you expect out of them?
Well, of course, we travel to Penn State, and it's the second longest trip that we have. Quincy, I think, is a little bit longer, but it's about an 8-hour trip over there. And we play Penn State on Friday night. So we'll leave Friday morning and drive most of the day, and then play Penn State Friday night. And, of course, Penn State returns 4 of the players from last year's national championship team. However, they have lost to UCLA and Stanford both already. But I also know they're very, very good. And they'll have the big crowd there for Saturday night, and it'll be a real tough task for us against them. My concern is that they have both their middles back, and of course their setter, who's very good, and so the middles will be a difficult thing for us to defend. After we play that match on Friday night, then at I believe it's 1 o'clock or 11. I have to double check the schedule to make sure I haven't quite got that far. We will play Juniata, who's coached by Larry Bach, who's also the women's coach and a good friend of both yours and mine, and they're an up-and-coming program. Larry's doing a real nice job with the kids, and he gets most of the kids out of Pennsylvania. You know, that's high school boys is real strong over there. And they're a program that'll be fun to play against because they'll play real hard, but it also will be a program that I would hope that I get the chance to play some of our young kids again. And then at 5 o'clock on Saturday, we play George Mason, and that may be the highlight of the whole trip. Obviously, Penn State will be a real strong match for us, a match that we want to play and want to be very successful at. But the George Mason match on Saturday at 5 will be a match that will help us measure some progress, if indeed we've made any at all, after having played them a couple weeks ago.
Certainly.
And then we'll turn around and come back home on Sunday.
Yeah, the team certainly must feel some kind of extra incentive to play well against George Mason, as George Mason started talking through the net a little bit and that kind of thing. I think we'll see the Mastodons a little more assertive.
Well, Tim, I certainly think that's true, because we'll have a different look this time around, and I think that's to our advantage.
All right. Well, we will see you next week. There will not be any matches this weekend because the Mastodons are on the road. So for Arnie Ball, I'm Tim Heffernan saying goodbye for now.